let's cut to the chase. Basically, I've been seeing your tweets recently, and I think I've just been a bit out the loop. I think we made a video about Valve Deckard 2 years ago on the VR Crewcast, and then I did a video about a year ago. And like starting this conversation today, you basically said to me that you've been basically researching this headset for like 4 years.
Yeah, it really would be 4 years because let me put it this way, the first beta that released, that even mentioned Deckard or anything related to it was released in January 2021, and we didn't really find them until later that year. So it's literally have been 4 years of pain and suffering to get to this point.
But a lot of my hopes are on Valve Deckard, or as you called it now, Valve Frame, is it?
So Valve literally this week filed for a trademark called Steam Frame,
Steam
which is
Frame.
similar to Steam Deck, which is kind of in a way a vote of confidence because from what I understand, they announced they only released the Steam or Valve Index under the Valve name because they didn't feel like it was big enough for them to put their moneymaker name on it. They wanted it to be more like an experimental release or whatever. And probably also the fact that that device at the time wasn't really, yeah, it did Steam VR and everything, but it wasn't the entirety of Steam wasn't the selling point for that device. Whereas now there's a new trademark that in the trademark says it's a actual hardware device. It's not a software or anything that we don't have access to. It is an actual hardware device that they feel they're finalizing the name for, and it's probably the Deckard because of just how timing has gone. One of the biggest indicators, just to start off right off the bat, I think, is the controllers for the Deckard. And you're you're confused because there's a lot of names, right? There's a lot of names. There's Deckard, there's Roy, there's Steam Frame, there's all this stuff. And just to kind of recap that, Deckard is the code name for the headset that they've been working on for many years at this point, even since the Index. So they've been working on this for 6 years already at this point. And the controllers we learned last year were codenamed Roy.
Yeah.
And Roy is actually the antagonist in the movie Blade Runner. So Deckard fights Roy in that movie. So it's just like a little like nerdy pop culture reference to what that's connected to. And last year, Roy was all the files for Roy, the render models, the input, and everything leaked into Steam VR accidentally, and they were at EV1 phase, which is like it's what we call the tooling phases of mass production. Like it's not finalized completely, but most of the stuff that you'll see in like these EV phases are gearing up to slowly get mass production ready for a hardware device. And literally this week, I got my hands on just the pretty much same files, but they're just full on Roy controller. They're not even prototype anymore. They're final. So they already have all the render models. It's very clear to me that at least Roy is completely done. I've heard a lot at this point. I'm sure you probably heard at this point that Deckard's whatever is about to happen with Valve's next headset is, if it's not by the end of this year, it's probably early next year.
What you're saying is guaranteed. It's guaranteed that some sort of VR AR device is coming. I think the reason I have hopes for it is obviously the controllers look like game controllers. These controllers actually look really cool. Like the Roy controllers actually look really cool, and a completely different style, I guess, to what is probably the best controllers at the moment are the touch controllers. Do we know hardware specs for this headset at the moment? Do we know what to expect, like lenses?
Pancake lenses, I know for sure. The chip is going to be running some sort of Qualcomm chip. It's going to be probably very similar to what you see in like a Muhan type chip scenario situation, XR2 Plus type thing, something like that. I think it's important to bring that up because I think 2 years ago when I talked about Deckard, back then the speculation was, oh, they're going to put basically the same chip as they use in the Steam Deck in a headset, or they're going to figure out how to with maybe a chip later down the line.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Because frankly, back then, I did not think Valve was crazy enough to be able to figure out how to run the majority of the Steam Deck library on an ARM chip. Not only does it require taking the API calls from Windows to Linux like they do on the Steam Deck, which is already, it's not emulation, but it's translation, and that's a lot of work even to get that. You have to literally completely emulate the x86 to ARM and all both of those things all at the same time. And that's basically what they're doing. They have this whole software stack that they've been kind of funding and developing with called FX, which is a basically a very fast user mode x86 to ARM emulator. And the whole goal, play all the games that you can play on the Steam Deck on the headset, like locally. The best example, recently Meta did this thing with the Xbox, right? They really advertised like
Yeah.
the idea is, oh, we're gonna have you can buy this Xbox branded headset and you'll be able to play the Xbox library. However, that was all cloud-based, so you always had to be connected. With Deckard, one of the biggest goals for them, from what I understand, is no, it's going to be all local. You'll be able to download your games off Steam and play it locally.
Yeah, on a plane, for example, like you would on a Steam Deck, basically.
Yeah, it's basically a Steam Deck for your face, and that's why the controllers look like that. They're basically, if you mix the input of like a Steam Deck with a Quest controller-like design, it's very clear that is the goal here.
Yeah, so it's going to be inside-out tracking, obviously, because that's kind of like where we are now. Do we know anything about whether it's going to use a display port? I'm assuming it's going to be PSVR compatible anyway. Do we know how that's going to work? Or
I want to tell you a funny story, actually. This might make some people upset, but it's kind of relevant. And it's a long story. Sorry in advance. But it's interesting history that not many people know, because you only find out this stuff by talking to people behind closed doors. Valve has been obviously wanting to release a wireless headset for many years, since probably the Vive even. There was this event where they showed off a wireless Vive with a company called Nitero, which was they were a fabless chip company that was designing what is known as WiGig chips. And they worked with Valve to put a 60 gigahertz WiGig chip with an HTC Vive and make wireless PSVR back then. And I talked to people and I learned actually that they were planning to use that technology for a headset later on. However, AMD, this was during the first big VR boom. And whenever there's a big boom in VR, big companies like to acquire these startups and do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes with the VR cycle, it goes like up and then crashes. So when these big companies buy the startups during the up phase and they crash, they're like, oh, well, we're a huge company. It's not worth for us to invest in VR anymore. And AMD bought Nitero and basically shelved everything. And it never saw the light of day. So Valve kind of had to start from scratch there, which they actually kind of did. And they were going to release a revised index in between what we have coming now, the Deckard, and the Index. And its big primary focus was actually going to have wireless WiGig technology while still using Lighthouse and everything. That project was actually so far in development, they were getting like packaging ready for it and stuff.
Wow.
They canceled it like at the last minute. So that's why I get scared talking about Deckard these days, because I really like to make sure that it is coming because Valve now has a purported history of canceling projects like The Last Step, even hardware projects. Another example of this, again, I just want more history.
It's
That's
the console. Are you going to talk about the console?
The console, yeah. So the console is another thing that was supposed to launch alongside the Index. It was very basic, honestly. There's a whole great video on it, actually, because a channel called Bringus Studios actually got their hands on one of like the prototypes, basically took it apart and showed how it worked and everything. And inside of it, there was actually a whole VR adapter that was designed for the Index, because it was basically meant to be a set-top box that could play Steam VR. And that also was one of those projects that was pretty much finished, like completely finalized and everything. And then they just decided, we don't think the software experience will make our Steam platform look good, so they canceled that at the last minute. They've always had this purported ideas of, hey, we want to have a console someday, we want to have a wireless headset, and all of these things have, while they've been either canceled or shelves, they always went into other things. So now we have Steam Link, well known on the Quest at this point, but it's also coming to like Pico devices and HTC standalone devices pretty soon. A lot of that built for Quest is stuff that they just kind of grabbed from their R&D working on that canceled Index revision. And it's also being ported now to Deckard as well, because there is a actual hardware that's even certified internally. It's like the D-Link VR AirBridge that Meta released a couple years ago. Kind of the bigger differential between what Meta released back then and what Valve is going to release is it's going to have 6 gigahertz capability instead of just 5 gigahertz because it's a Wi-Fi 6E Realtek chip. And it's gonna work on Windows. So if you have a PC, you'll be able to plug in the USB, and it'll be able to easily find the headset that it's meant to work with, which pretty much Deckard probably first off. And it just seems like this time around, this will be a very controversial headset, I think. The things that PCVR enthusiasts have come to love over the years, like lighthouse tracking and the wire, those things are definitely not the priority focus. They've been R&Ding so many new technologies internally, and they're like trying to make a bigger bang that's maybe closer between like a Quest and Vision Pro that also incorporates the entirety of Steam rather than just like, hey, we're going to make an enthusiast device that's more the same like the Index.
Yeah. I mean, the Index was like, it had a one-use purpose. But yeah, that is interesting. Do you think, knowing they're launching a standalone device, they're going to fund their own standalone games? For them to go this far into making something like this, surely then software's king.
But I know there's a lot of developers that have dev kits right now, and they're basically porting a lot of the games that they built for Quest over to the headset to run natively at its best for VR. So that stuff will happen. I think you mentioned this to me too, but I also heard it. There were murmurs that there was a standalone version of Half Life Alyx that basically works.
I've had it said to me twice, actually. Once was at Connect by a developer, and it was like, dude, you won't believe the conversation I had earlier. And I was like, please tell me. And that's what he told me. And then I think another developer was speaking about it. I don't want to get my hopes up for that, but you know, this headset could be like one of the biggest things that ever happened for VR, and that's why I want to talk about it. It could be huge. It could be absolutely massive.
Yeah. I think it'll reignite sort of a lot of interest in it for sure. I don't think it's going to be like a mainstream "we're finally here" moment, and the reason why I feel that way is I don't think Valve thinks XR is ready to go mainstream yet either. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to be with their foot in the door.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the same as PlayStation. That's the same as PlayStation mentality. Even though PSVR 2, I think, hasn't been supported as well as PSVR 1 was, you've still got to be there because users are basically like testers. And they'll learn lots of data at the same time.
But like I think PlayStation VR 2 kind of did more of the same with what PSVR 1 was trying to do, which is fine for their platform. That's what they think they were going to be good at. I don't feel Valve does something unless they feel it's big. I mean, I think that's why they canceled the Index revision. They probably just assumed this is not big enough. It's not going to really do anything. Let's really cook for more years to do something. Just like with the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck was basically all the stuff that they canceled after the original Steam machine and the Steam Link and Steam controller. And the Steam Deck was clearly very big for the industry because it's basically reignited the idea. It's completely kind of bolstered like a new category of PCs completely.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, absolutely. Again, like multiple people are making these handhelds now. Even Xbox are suddenly like, we're going to brand ourselves.
Yeah, and I heard Sony is going to release a PlayStation handheld as well. So that alone, that's the kind of stuff that Valve always seems to want to do, is they always want to make something that like just pushes something further. And the reason why I bring that up is to go back to the Steam Frame. Why do I think Steam Frame is the name for the headset? Well, frankly, I made a video about 2.5 years ago the title is Deckard is Valve's Spatial Computer.
Yeah,
is what I titled it. And I basically talked about my obsession with Steam VR overlays and blah, 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 all this stuff that was going on in the back end that made me feel that Valve was also very passionate about overlays. And then obviously Vision Pro has heavily popularized that idea as well, where you have just like your entire AR VR space is just filled with 2D and 3D. I saw the writing where things were going back then. And going back to the Steam Frame trademark, the latest data mine that happened literally 2 days ago and made me so freaking exhausted. They have been renaming all of their overlay systems from overlay to frame.
Yeah.
So that's like obvious, kind of. That's like, oh yeah, we're obviously doing this sort of thing. And I like to equate it to, have you ever thought about like, why is Microsoft Windows called Windows? It's because it was named after the graphical user interface that Microsoft created. Valve is about to release a device that is called frames, and it's all the software is relating to the frames that you're going to create in your environment, and a lot of it's going to be gaming focused at the beginning for sure, but it's kind of like them being like, hey, we're going to try to create our Steam OS on a XR sort of vision and everything. It's their foot in the door, because companies like Valve, Apple, Meta, all of them want that big next computing platform, whatever shape it may be, even if it takes a long time. And I really think Deckard is trying to be more like that for sure.
And what's so good is like, it creates a spark. Meta, everyone are talking about, oh, there's no Quest 4 now, but I can guarantee a couple of months after Deckard or around that time when it all happens, Zuckerberg will be straight in there trying to make something just the same. You know, it just has such a great knock-on effect on the technology. I just can't wait for something new, and especially I'm really hoping that graphics wise for standalone it does something new, because at the moment developers are so still focused on using Quest 2 as like a baseline for the games. We haven't really seen a shift in graphics for standalone in a long time. It's very rare that a game stands out on standalone. So I'm hoping that the Deckard will suddenly also keep people up the arse for that.
I think one big help is the Deckard has eye tracking and foveated rendering. We've had eye tracking stuff leaking for Deckard for 2 years now, but the latest SteamVR beta literally references the foveated rendering systems that they're using for it and everything. So
that's going to be an OS level. That's going to be an OS
level.
Yeah. So that's cool. That means developers are going to be probably using it all the time from their games from day one. What about, though, the reason I heard eye tracking wasn't something for standalone was literally because of the amount of power it's going to need. Form factor, weight, all that stuff contributes to a good user experience. So when talking about eye tracking, the reason it's not in any standalone device so far is because of the amount of power it uses. What's the solution for Deckard?
I'm gonna at least say that I know they are putting basically battery in the back of the head, similar to what you see on Pico 4.
As a counterbalance as well. That kind of works pretty well. Okay.
When you're trying to do something as graphically intensive as XR, you're already using a lot of power, frankly, for all the systems. I know John Carmack has always been very downward on eye track foveated rendering, but frankly, I think headsets like Vision Pro has really shown a lot of what it could do. PSVR 2, for sure. So I don't know. Some people it uses a little bit more power just to drive that, but I think the trade-off is worth it.
Yeah. But I would still argue one of the best experiences is a game called Synapse on PSVR 2, where it's actually part of the gameplay. You know, it's built into the game as something to actually use, not just make a game look good. So, okay, so we've got eye tracking, we've got the battery, we've got the ROY controllers. We're assuming this headset's black by the renders. Is that something we can actually... Yeah, okay, we're going black. What else is there that you think would be important? I mean, we've got mixed reality. I'm assuming that's going to be a given. Or do you think there's going to be a depth sensor, actually? Or is it going to be like what they did with the Quest 3S?
This is not a guaranteed thing. This is something that...
Dude, it's all speculation. This is... Very good speculation.
There might have been a prototype of some point where they were spreading IR light in your room from the headset, similar to a depth sensor, but it was also not just for the idea for the IR cameras to kind of map your view. Another reason they were doing this is because they were putting these little photodiodes all around the headset, similar to the previous Lighthouse headsets. It was a new type of photodiode that was a bit more, let me say, advanced than what previous Lighthouse headsets used, where they could actually calculate the angle of the IR light. And there was two purposes for that system. One was to create backwards compatibility with base stations, if you still wanted to use it with the Deckard headset. But the other thing was as well, so they could have the depth spreader and also have another way to kind of get more data from the environment, especially for playing in the dark, which camera tracking usually struggles with. So I don't know if they removed that, but there are definitely prototypes. It was basically in Valve's mind like a Lighthouse 3.0 that worked alongside the camera tracking. So that may or may not still be in it.
And talking about playing, obviously, they think people are going to be playing flat screen games in the headset. Why? What's the benefit? Like, apart from being able to take it anywhere, personally, I would rather play my flat screen games portably on a portable device, which is what they already have. So, are these games going to be in 3D? Are they going to be in some sort of nice curved screen?
Let's start with the 3D thing. There is references to a way to render stereo in their theater mode that's already in Steam VR. And the weird thing about it is it's not connected to any toggle button or anything. It's just something that connects to the system's mailbox that needs to be activated from whatever way. There are ways to hack it to work, but I always thought that was, why are they making it so complicated? Like, it needs to be activated from like I don't know, maybe something from Steam in particular for a game of its choosing. But I think there's a lot of aspects that maybe we haven't seen yet, because the only companies that have been pushing this, like the spatial computing stuff, has been Meta and Apple. They're not a gaming company, so they're not going to do like too interesting stuff with it. And Meta, they partnered with Xbox, which I don't know. I think Xbox is like, they don't really put effort into anything, frankly. So
they're kind of
but I think
directionless.
Valve,
They're kind of directionless at the moment.
that's what I should have said. Yeah, they feel very
Yeah,
directionless, and
they do.
like, I don't know. It just seems like they just kind of did this Xbox headset with Meta because they signed something and like just
Yeah.
kind of threw it out there
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But I think Valve, they have been building a ton of features for Steam, and a lot of those features are social features if you really think about it. They can allow developers to make it so when you do certain things in a game, particles fly out at you from
Yeah.
that screen, or they can literally have the game load alongside an environment that is themed to that game. And the biggest thing that I think that might happen, and this is something I kind of demoed with actually Mike on his Vision Pro, I basically put us in a room together, and the idea was like playing games side by side. And I can really see Valve, they already have a feature called Remote Play Together, where you can literally have one person own a game, and then you can create a couch co-op experience by streaming that game. If you can add virtual avatars so you're in the same environment and all the same stuff going on, but network across the world, I think it's one of those things that doesn't really make sense maybe today. Like, it's like a little kind of gimmicky feature.
Yeah.
But I do think this is the kind of stuff that will catch on as the technology progresses, even more than maybe just like the full-on VR gaming for a lot of people, because there's a huge population of people that still just get sick from VR gaming.
Yeah.
So to create all these other methods where people can get in a headset and the headsets get smaller and they become actually a better viewing experience than just these physical monitors that we have, I think over time it will make sense more and more.
When you talked about being in the same space, for example, sharing the same screen, MUVR does that. So I can invite people into my bedroom and we can play like Mario Kart on the same TV. And it's a crazy experience. It's surreal, you know, and I think it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid and I used to play games with my friends in real life. And if you're saying that can be something that's part of a system.
At a system level, something like that would be, I think, pretty huge.
Especially if you can map your space. That's what you were saying, weren't you? Like, it would be like you coming into this room, sitting here, and us looking at this screen, for example, doing something together.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. And like, you can literally, do the fist bump with each other and stuff like that. Because I think there's one thing that people are learning over time, and even now in XR, is people really love social experiences.
Yeah, it's huge.
Right?
It's huge.
That is really. Yeah, that seems to be the really big thing. And I think any platform that kind of figures out how to tap into that with software that people already use daily is going to be pretty successful. And the factor is, none of this stuff that you do now will just stop with the headset, because they're still supporting all the legacy features, all the games you play in VR. It's still a VR headset.
Yeah.
They designed the controller so it'll also be able to play your VR games as well. We're seeing XR evolve naturally, and that's what I find really exciting about all of this.
A couple of notes I'll write down quickly. Field of view. What do we know about the headset in terms of field of view and stuff? I say that because obviously the Index was one of the biggest pushers. Was it 140?
Yeah, the Index, at least horizontal, is like 110. It's 110 both ways, which makes it seem bigger.
It does seem
because
bigger,
most headsets have like a pretty good wide field of view, but the vertical field of view is usually much, like, 20 degrees smaller in some cases.
Yeah, nice. And what about frame rates? Do you think this is all going to be pretty standard, like 120 max?
I think we'll probably see 120. GT has been wanting me to come on the show and talk about Deckard for a while, and I understand, because I only just tweet stuff recently. I've not had any time to YouTube stuff, but my confidence level in reporting stuff has not been extremely high. I wanted to wait for a really big moment to like come onto a show and really talk about it. And the trademark really was that thing that made me feel it was a really good time
This is it.
for it. So yeah.
What do you think the price point would be? Do you think 1,000?
It's gonna be more than Steam. I still think it's gonna be priced around the index territory for sure. There was a report out there that might even be $1,200. Valve does not think we're ready for Quest pricing in this industry. Whether they're right or not, that's what they think. So
Like money is a very difficult thing to discuss for a lot of people because it's so different for everyone. But I hope that if it does excellent media playback like Apple Vision Pro, because the stuff I've seen on there recently for the iMacs, and I'm so jealous, you know, seeing those environments to like the alien environment and stuff, that just looks insane to me. And being able to VR game on it and being able to flat game on it in a very special way. Yeah, I hope it hits, you know, I hope it lands and people get into it and then it lights a fire under everyone else.
Again, I'm a big believer of what is now being called spatial computing. And I think obviously Vision Pro is too expensive for the general audience to get excited about it yet. But I think just the way how Valve works and lets people do things, I think they'll be more behind the idea. And in a gaming context. So I just think, I really feel like there's going to be almost a best of both worlds thing going on here. Even if it doesn't sound like it, like there might be some people that feel like terrified hearing all this, but I really do think people will get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it'd be hopefully it'll reach a bigger audience. That's the main thing, isn't it? And people get to experience it. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. It's been long overdue. I do miss the old podcast days. And hopefully they're not over. Maybe one day we'll do a revive. So I love it. I love it because obviously we love VR so much, you know, and some days you're like, what is going on? What is actually happening? You know, Meta being amazing for a couple of years and then suddenly they've gone absolutely crazy. Like the apps turned into such a mess. The stores turned into such a mess. It's all about this Horizon stuff, which is strange because when you brought up social experiences, I'm like, that's what they're trying to build with Horizon. But for some reason, I just don't care. And I don't know why.
I really feel Meta is just not. I kind of feel like they're like Microsoft, actually. You know, I was saying they're kind of directionless. Whoever's in charge at Meta, they never want to stick to their guns, if that makes sense. They're almost too data driven, if that makes sense. Like, they see data
absolutely,
yeah. So that's why I just can't really, you know, I will say I am interested in their next headset because they're doing the what? I'm sorry.
Is it the Boba 3 or something?
No, I guess it's called Puffin. So it's basically like a very thin and light headset that will be tethered to a compute puck on your waist.
I have heard about that. Yes.
Yeah. I think that one I'll be interested, like, because I don't even own a Quest anymore. Actually, I got rid of all mine.
So you don't own a PSVR 2 and you don't own a Quest.
Yeah, I don't own those anymore.
All right then, dude. Well, thank you ever so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it as well because I know what it's like to have a young kid and stuff. And obviously you said you were tired at the beginning. So thank you for joining me, dude. Really appreciate it. And I'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good. Bye.